Welcome to my Sacred Revenge channel, where betrayal isn't just exposed, it's answered.
The imposing oak doors of Sterling and Chambers' legal group stood tall before me, almost mocking me, as my father's booming voice echoed down the hushed hallway. She absolutely does not belong here. My mother, Ilara, was barely coherent in her final years. This private reading is strictly for legitimate family members only. Before I begin telling you my story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and if you'd like to share your own story, feel free to write to us. I subtly smoothed the fabric of my simple charcoal gray dress, a tailored silk blend piece that unassumingly cost more than my cousin Bethany's entire designer wardrobe combined. Despite the biting words, I maintained my composure, a skill I had perfected over years. For 3 long years, I had been the sole relative who consistently visited my grandmother Ilara. Everyone else assumed I was merely a sympathetic companion, a quiet presence keeping an aging woman company. What they didn't know was that I was meticulously managing her complex investments, carefully cultivating her modest fortune into something truly extraordinary. "Serafina shouldn't even be present," Bethany interjected, her voice dripping with disdain, as she fidgeted with the ostentatious, clearly counterfeit buckle of her flashy belt. All she did was play caretaker while the rest of us were out building actual successful careers. Oh, if only they knew! Those tranquil afternoons I spent with my grandmother weren't filled with idle chatter, but with intense, focused sessions of restructuring her entire investment portfolio, transforming what they considered modest wealth into an empire currently valued at over $300 million. While they were too preoccupied with their own lives to even bother with a phone call, let alone a visit, I had been diligently helping grandmother Ilara forge something truly monumental. "Mr. Sterling will see you now," the receptionist announced, her gaze flickering with a hint of concern as she observed my family's escalating hostility. "Serafina, wait outside," my father commanded, his voice a low growl. "This doesn't concern you in the slightest." Through the barely ajar doorway, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Mr. Sterling. He was the only other person in this world who was privy to the full extent of what my grandmother and I had accomplished together. As our eyes met, he offered me a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, a perfectly timed signal. "Actually," I began, but my older brother Julian cut me off abruptly. "Just go fetch us some refreshments or find something else equally useful to do," he sneered, his lip curling in disgust. "We'll be sure to inform you if there's any small charitable donation made in your name." A quiet smile played on my lips as I considered the stack of meticulously prepared documents that were about to be unveiled. I remembered grandmother's joyous laughter when we had finalized her intricate plans just 3 months prior. "Sometimes," she had mused, her eyes twinkling, "the most profound lessons arrive with a sudden change of address." My phone vibrated softly in my pocket. A message from grandmother's dedicated investment team: all properties successfully transferred, tenant notices prepared for immediate distribution. The family, a picture of self-importance, filed into the spacious conference room, deliberately, pointedly closing the heavy door in my face. Through the frosted glass, I could dimly make out their figures settling into their seats, already deep in animated discussion about how they would meticulously divide grandmother's supposed fortune. "She wasn't even lucid during her last months," my Aunt Cassandra declared loudly, her voice piercing through the glass. "Spending all that time with Serafina probably addled her mind even further." The irony was almost too much to bear. If only they knew that during those very addled moments, my grandmother had been orchestrating the most brilliant and intricate financial maneuver of her life. While they smugly assumed she was in decline, she was, in fact, meticulously building a sprawling real estate empire that would fundamentally redefine all their lives. Another soft buzz from my phone. It was the property management company, confirming that all security codes and locks across the portfolio would be updated by sunset. My cousin Marcus's voice, annoyingly clear, carried through the door. "Remember how Serafina always used to boast about being grandmother's favorite?" "Yeah, well, I guess we'll soon see how far that got her," Bethany chimed in, a snide chuckle following her words. I couldn't help but smile, a genuine, private smile, as I recalled the countless afternoons grandmother and I had dedicated to meticulously reviewing property acquisitions, analyzing market trends, and strategizing our next moves. They believe wealth is simply about acquiring possessions, she had sagely observed to me one sun-drenched afternoon. True prosperity, my dear, lies in owning the very things other people depend upon. The imposing oak door creaked open again. Mr. Sterling's assistant, a polite woman with kind eyes, stood in the doorway. Miss Thorne, we are ready for you now. I stepped into the conference room, my gaze sweeping across the scene. My family was arrayed around the massive, polished table, their expressions a carefully calibrated mixture of annoyance and outright hostility. This is a private reading, Mr. Sterling, my father began, his tone assertive, but Mr. Sterling calmly raised a hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. Actually, Mr. Beaumont, Miss Thorne's presence is absolutely essential to these proceedings. He deliberately opened a thick, leather-bound folder on the table before him. Shall we begin? I quietly took a seat in the corner, a detached observer, watching as my family members eagerly leaned forward, their eyes gleaming with avarice. They had no inkling, not the slightest clue, that everything they believed they knew about grandmother, Elara's vast wealth, was about to be irrevocably shattered. Before we proceed, Mr. Sterling continued, his voice resonating with professional gravity, I must emphasize that Mrs. Elara Beaumont was of completely sound mind and body when she meticulously made these arrangements. He paused, letting his words sink in. We possess extensive medical documentation and irrefutable video recordings of every single one of our meetings, spanning the entire 3-year period. My father, impatient and dismissive, waved a hand in the air. Yes, we understand. Just get to the distributions already. Mr. Sterling calmly adjusted his spectacles, a subtle glint in his eyes. Very well. We shall commence with the residential properties where each of you presently resides. The stage was meticulously set. In a matter of mere moments, they would discover that the granddaughter they had so casually dismissed as a simple caretaker was about to become their formidable landlord. After all, as grandmother Elara had always shrewdly remarked, timing was absolutely paramount, not just in shrewd business dealings, but especially in matters of profound justice. Let's begin with the residential properties, Mr. Sterling announced, his tone impeccably neutral, devoid of any discernible emotion. As you are all aware, Mrs. Elara Beaumont owned the homes in which each of you currently reside. Yes, my father interrupted, his impatience barely contained. The houses will obviously be transferred to their current occupants. We've already made extensive plans for renovations. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat delicately. Actually, Mr. Beaumont, Mrs. Beaumont made entirely different arrangements. All residential properties have been legally transferred to Thorne Holdings Limited, a corporation that was formally established precisely 3 months ago. Bethany's brow furrowed in confusion. What corporation? Just tell us who inherits. What? I'm getting to that, Miss Thorne, Mr. Sterling continued, his voice unwavering. Thorne Holdings Limited is now your official landlord. Here are your new lease agreements, effective immediately. The room erupted into absolute pandemonium as he calmly began distributing thick, cream-colored envelopes. Lease agreements? My brother Julian bellowed, his face contorted in disbelief. This must be a colossal mistake. That's my house. Actually, Mr. Sterling calmly corrected him, it was your mother's house, and it now legally belongs to Thorne Holdings Limited. Your rent will be due on the 1st of each month, at current market rates. My Aunt Cassandra, her hands trembling, ripped open her envelope and let out a horrified gasp. $3,000 a month. This is highway robbery. That, Aunt Cassandra, is the current market rate for your neighborhood, I stated. My voice clear and steady, speaking for the first time since entering the room. We had multiple independent appraisals conducted. The room plunged into an immediate stunned silence as every single head snapped in my direction. We? My father asked slowly, his voice barely a whisper. What exactly do you mean by we? Mr. Sterling allowed himself a subtle, almost imperceptible smile. Allow me to introduce the sole owner and chief executive officer of Thorn Holdings Limited, Miss Serafina Thorn. The silence that descended upon the room was utterly deafening. The fake designer buckle on. Bethany's belt clicked audibly against the polished table as she slumped further into her luxurious leather chair, her face a mask of utter defeat. This is utterly impossible. My father sputtered, his voice cracking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. She's a nobody. She's nothing. Actually, Mr. Sterling calmly continued, his voice cutting through the lingering tension. Mrs. Beaumont and Miss Thorne spent the entirety of the last 3 years meticulously restructuring the entire family portfolio. He pressed a discreet button on a remote, and the large screens embedded in the walls of the room instantly illuminated, displaying a comprehensive, visually stunning overview of Thorn Holdings Limited's vast and diverse holdings, sprawling apartment complexes, imposing office buildings, bustling shopping centers, and undeniable empire valued at well over $300 million. While all of you were far too busy to even bother with a visit, I stated quietly, my voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. Grandmother and I were meticulously constructing something truly extraordinary. I met each of their gazes, one by one. She taught me every single thing she knew about real estate and strategic investment. Those afternoons you so smugly dismissed as me just playing nurse were, in fact, intensive board meetings. You cannot possibly do this to us, Julian protested, his voice laced with desperation. We're family. Family? I laughed softly, a mirthless sound. Like when you shamelessly spread rumors that I was taking advantage of a senile old woman, or when you conspired to have me forcibly removed as her designated caregiver? My phone vibrated once more. A concise message from the property management company. New locks successfully installed at all properties. Security codes changed as per request. You have precisely 2 options, I continued, opening my laptop with a deliberate click. Sign the lease agreements at current market rate, or vacate the premises within 30 days. Grandmother Ilara was exceedingly clear about these terms. This is absolutely ridiculous. My Aunt Cassandra declared, her voice rising in indignation. We will contest the will. You can't get away with this. You are certainly welcome to try, Mr. Sterling interjected smoothly, his gaze firm. However, Mrs. Beaumont, with remarkable foresight, created dozens of detailed video recordings explaining her decisions in her own words. Furthermore, she underwent 3 separate comprehensive mental competency evaluations by independent medical professionals. This entire process was meticulously and very carefully planned. I calmly produced another set of documents, laying them neatly on the table. Grandmother also fastidiously documented every single missed holiday, every ignored phone call, every solitary instance when each of you was simply too busy to visit her. I paused, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. 3 years of painstakingly detailed records, unequivocally demonstrating precisely why she made these specific choices. The fight, slowly but inexorably, began to drain from their faces as the crushing weight of reality settled upon them. They weren't merely losing their anticipated inheritances. They were, in a cruel twist of fate, becoming mere tenants in the very homes they had always considered their own. The lease agreements must be signed by the close of business today, I informed them, my voice firm and uncompromising. Otherwise, eviction proceedings will commence promptly tomorrow morning. After all, as Grandmother Ilara always sagely advised, real estate waits for no one, especially not those who never bothered to comprehend its true, intrinsic value. The seismic aftermath of Grandmother Ilara's will reading sent powerful shockwaves reverberating throughout the entire family. Within a mere few hours, local real estate agents found themselves inundated with a deluge of panicked phone calls from my frantic relatives, each desperately scrambling to secure alternative housing. Their desperation, however, was quickly compounded by the grim realization that rental prices across the board were, ironically, even higher than the rates I was magnanimously offering them. One by one, their shoulders slumped in defeat, they begrudgingly signed the leases, their hands visibly trembling with a potent cocktail of incandescent rage and profound humiliation. Initial here, acknowledging the no sublet clause, I calmly instructed my father, observing him grip the pen so tightly that the plastic casing audibly creaked, threatening to snap under the immense pressure. And here, accepting the terms and conditions of property maintenance. You're really savoring this, aren't you? He growled, his voice thick with resentment, his eyes narrowed into slits. My mind drifted back to all those countless family dinners overflowing with their smug self-satisfaction, where they had openly mocked my decision to spend my precious time with grandmother. I recalled, with crystal clarity, all the snide, cutting remarks about how I was foolishly wasting my potential by not pursuing a real career, like their own, which they so loudly proclaimed. Actually, I replied, a subtle, knowing smile gracing my lips, I'm merely adhering to grandmother Alara's ultimate business lesson. Real estate, as she always emphasized, is about location, location, location. And, as it turns out, the location of power matters most of all. My phone continued its incessant buzzing, a steady stream of increasingly desperate messages flooding in from various family members. Serafina, we absolutely need to discuss my rent reduction. Julian, this simply cannot be legal. My lawyers will be in contact with you immediately. Aunt Cassandra, please, darling, let's sit down and discuss a family discount. I calmly archived every single one of them, my focus unwavering, instead directing my attention to the detailed property management reports scrolling across my tablet. The burgeoning empire grandmother and I had so painstakingly constructed was already generating substantial returns, and my mind was already buzzing with ambitious plans for its further expansion. A month later, I sat comfortably in my new, expansive office. It was the meticulously converted sunroom, the very space where grandmother and I had, with shared mischievous glances, plotted this entire, audacious transformation. The room still lovingly held her favorite, well-worn armchair, now positioned to overlook a meticulously crafted scale model of our ever-expanding real estate holdings. Your father is here to see you, my assistant announced, her voice polite but firm. He doesn't have an appointment. I watched him on the security feed, a stark image of his former self, pacing restlessly in the elegant lobby. His once immaculate suit now showed unmistakable signs of wear, the fabric slightly rumpled, a telltale sign of his altered circumstances. The prestigious country club membership, which he could no longer comfortably afford, had visibly taken its heavy toll on his once meticulously cultivated image. Send him up, I decided, a quiet resolve settling over me. It's time for his first monthly property inspection anyway. He entered, a deflated, almost shrunken version of the arrogant man I had once known. Serafina, this has gone on long enough. We simply must discuss a reasonable solution. Reasonable? I raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a flicker of amusement in my eyes. Like when you reasonably suggested I was shamelessly taking advantage of grandmother, or when you reasonably tried to ban me from her funeral, claiming I wasn't real family. That was we were wrong, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper, a rare moment of genuine vulnerability. But this punishment, this isn't punishment, father. I calmly corrected him, my voice firm but devoid of malice. This is simply business. Grandmother Elara taught me well. Every astute investment should, without exception, generate appropriate returns. I swiveled my laptop screen to face him, displaying the current impressive market values of the family properties. Your home's value, for instance, has actually increased a remarkable 15% since its transfer. And the rental income it generates is precisely what any savvy business owner would unequivocally expect. But we're family, he protested weakly, his voice a desperate plea. Family? I smiled, a knowing, almost melancholic smile, as I gently pulled out grandmother Elara's worn, leather-bound diary. Allow me to read you something profound grandmother wrote. I opened it to a marked page. They mistakenly believe that blood is inherently thicker than water. But they conveniently forget that sturdy concrete foundations, my dear, matter far more than both. Over the ensuing months, the intricate family dynamics shifted dramatically, irrevocably. Bethany, stripped of her assumed inheritance, was forced to downsize considerably, settling for a smaller, albeit still comfortable, apartment in one of my burgeoning buildings. Julian's wife, weary of his drastically reduced circumstances and perpetual complaints, finally left him, seeking a life beyond his self-imposed misery. Aunt Cassandra, for the very first time in over 2 decades, was compelled to seek and maintain a job to simply afford her rent. My meticulously built property empire continued its relentless, impressive growth. Thorn Holdings Limited systematically acquired more buildings, strategically expanded into lucrative commercial real estate ventures, and meticulously developed sleek, new luxury residential complexes. The family homes, once the entire focus of their greed, were now merely a negligible, almost forgotten, fraction of a much, much larger, far more impressive portfolio. 1 year to the day after the infamous will reading, I received an unexpected invitation to a family reunion. It was to be hosted not at their customary, exclusive country club, but at a rather modest, somewhat dated, community center. "Your cousins are organizing a family meeting," my assistant reported, a hint of amusement in her voice. "They claim they want to discuss reconciliation." I gazed at the security feeds displaying my various relatives, each one now residing in their rented homes, meticulously maintaining properties they had once so confidently believed they would effortlessly own. "Please inform them," I replied, a subtle smirk playing on my lips, "that their landlord is, regrettably, far too preoccupied with pressing real estate matters to attend. However, they are more than welcome to submit any property maintenance requests through the official channels." Grandmother Ilara's cherished photographs, her kind, knowing eyes smiled down at me from my office wall. "Remember," she had whispered to me during our final poignant meeting, her voice frail but resolute, "the most invaluable investment isn't merely in properties, my dear. It's in the profound lessons we absorb and the wisdom we accumulate." I picked up a substantial stack of lease renewals, each waiting patiently for new signatures. The very family that had, with such cruel disdain, once banned me from a simple will reading would now, ironically, require my explicit signature to merely retain the roofs over their heads. After all, as Grandmother Ilara had always so profoundly articulated, real estate isn't just about the tangible act of owning property. It is, at its core, about truly comprehending the profound intrinsic value of what you truly possess. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most valuable possession of all is the quiet, undeniable power to make others confront, truly realize exactly what they've so carelessly, so irrevocably, lost. The sprawling empire she had, with such boundless trust, helped me construct stands today as an irrefutable testament to her extraordinary wisdom and unparalleled foresight. While they, in their short-sightedness, dismissed me as a mere caregiver, I was, under her tutelage, meticulously becoming a CEO, while they scorned and ignored our quiet afternoon meetings. We were, in truth, diligently forging an enduring legacy. Now, they all reside within the confines of my buildings, dutifully paying rent to my flourishing company, finally grasping the profound, humbling truth that sometimes the very person they so carelessly underestimate becomes the indispensable foundation upon which their shelter and security now depend. As for me, well, I have properties to strategically manage and a continuously expanding empire to oversee. After all, real estate empires, unlike their misguided beliefs, do not simply build themselves. But, in a strangely satisfying way, they most certainly can help to rebuild shattered family dynamics, one meticulously drafted lease agreement at a time.